1. The impossible odds. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted through quantum channels humanity had only discovered 3 months earlier. Ambassador Marcus Wells read it twice before his hands started shaking. The Vorthak Empire had claimed ownership of the Sol system, based on ancient territorial maps that predated human civilization by millions of years. Earth had 30 solar rotations to surrender or face complete subjugation. In the emergency session at the United Nations Space Command headquarters, the mood was grim. General Patricia Kumar pulled up the tactical analysis on the main screen. The numbers were devastating. The Vorthak Empire commanded a fleet of 800 warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Their energy shields could withstand direct nuclear strikes. Their plasma weapons could vaporize titanium armor in seconds. Earth's entire space force consisted of 43 vessels, most of them converted cargo ships with bolted-on railguns. The Vorthak had sent their terms of engagement along with the ultimatum. Combat would follow the civilized warfare protocols established by the Galactic Council 5,000 years ago. All battles would occur in designated combat zones away from inhabited worlds. Weapons of mass destruction were forbidden. Each side would declare their forces openly before engagement. Combat would cease immediately upon formal surrender. The rules went on for pages, outlining what the galaxy considered honorable warfare. Commander Sarah Chen sat in the corner of the conference room, studying the protocols with an expression that her colleagues had learned to recognize. It was the same look she'd had before proposing they use weather satellites to map enemy positions in the Mars colony uprising. The same look before she suggested turning mining drones into reconnaissance units. "They expect us to lose honorably," she said quietly, but her voice carried across the room. Everyone turned to look at her. General Kumar raised an eyebrow, inviting her to continue. Chen stood up, her fingers dancing across her tablet as she pulled up historical records on the main screen. "Look at human military history: the American Revolution, the Vietnam War, the Finnish Winter War. Every time a smaller force defeated a larger one, they did it by refusing to fight on the enemy's terms." Admiral Robertson frowned from his position at the head of the table. "Commander, are you suggesting we violate the Galactic Council's protocols? That would make us pariahs in the galaxy." "I'm suggesting," Chen said carefully, "that we examine these protocols very, very carefully. For example, they state that combat must occur in designated zones, but they don't define what constitutes entering combat. They forbid weapons of mass destruction, but don't specify what constitutes a weapon versus a tool. They require declaring military forces but say nothing about civilian vessels." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. General Kumar leaned forward. "Commander Chen, I'm giving you carte blanche to form a strategic planning unit. Whatever. You need whoever you need. We have 29 days. Chen assembled her team within hours. It included Dr. Rashid Patel, a physicist who specialized in electromagnetic phenomena; Captain Liu Wei, who had spent 10 years running blockades as a merchant marine; Maria Santos, a psychologist who studied alien behavioral patterns; and surprisingly, Tommy Morrison, a 17-year-old hacker who had been serving community service for breaking into satellite networks. They worked around the clock, studying not just the Vorthak military doctrine, but their entire culture. The Vorthak were an ancient species, their society built on rigid hierarchies and formal procedures. They had conquered dozens of worlds, always following the same pattern, always adhering to the same rules. They had never lost because no one had ever thought to fight differently. On day 28, the Vorthak fleet arrived. 800 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that made them look like bronze jewels against the darkness of space. Admiral Thexer commanded from the flagship Inevitable Victory, a vessel larger than most Earth cities. The designated combat zone was established in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Earth's 43 ships took their positions, looking pathetically small against the Vorthak armada. Admiral Thexer transmitted the formal challenge according to protocol. General Kumar responded with Earth's acceptance. The battle began at 0800 hours Earth Standard Time. The Vorthak fleet advanced in their traditional phalanx formation, expecting the humans to form a defensive line. Instead, Earth's ships scattered, in every direction, some heading toward the asteroids, others diving toward Mars, still others accelerating toward Jupiter. Admiral Thexar's tactical officer reported the chaotic movement with confusion. "Supreme Admiral, the humans appear to be fleeing in panic," but Chen watched from Earth's command center with a slight smile. Every human ship was following a precisely calculated path. As they moved, they deployed something the Vorthak sensors didn't immediately recognize as threatening. Small satellites, no bigger than basketballs, scattered throughout the combat zone. Mining beacons officially. Tools for asteroid prospecting. Not weapons at all. The first indication something was wrong came when the Vorthak communication systems started experiencing interference. Static filled their channels, making coordination difficult. The mining beacons were generating electromagnetic pulses, not powerful enough to damage systems, but just enough to create chaos. "Sir," the Vorthak communications officer reported, "we're being jammed, but scans show no jamming equipment on the human vessels." Thexar's four eyes narrowed. "Impossible. The protocols clearly state—" His words were cut off as proximity alarms screamed. Hundreds of civilian vessels were emerging from behind asteroids where they'd been hiding for days. Cargo haulers, mining ships, private yachts, scientific research vessels. None of them were military ships, so they hadn't been declared in the force declaration. Captain Wei's voice crackled over Earth's encrypted channels. "All civilian volunteers, remember, you're not here to fight. You're here to work. Let's show them how humans mine asteroids." The mining ships activated their equipment. Powerful magnetic fields designed to collect metallic asteroids suddenly targeted Vorthak ships, pulling them off course. Drilling lasers meant for cutting through rock found that alien hull plating was surprisingly similar in composition. Construction vessels released clouds of reflective chaff supposedly to mark asteroid claims, which happened to blind Vorthak targeting sensors. The Vorthak fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for hitting military targets in formal combat. Their targeting computers couldn't lock onto vessels that registered as civilian mining equipment. Their protocols didn't have provisions for dealing with industrial accidents that happened to occur in combat zones. Dr. Patel's contribution activated. Next, Earth's ships began broadcasting on every frequency, but not military communications. They were transmitting music, human music, everything from death metal to experimental jazz, from Tibetan throat singing to dubstep. The cacophony overwhelmed the Vorthak's sensitive auditory receptors, making it impossible for them to concentrate. "This is not combat," Admiral Thexar roared over the din. "This is chaos. This is madness." "No," Chen transmitted back, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is humanity." As the Vorthak fleet struggled to maintain formation, Tommy Morrison's hack activated. He hadn't touched their military systems. Those were too well protected. Instead, he'd infiltrated their entertainment networks during the 28 days of preparation. Every screen on every Vorthak ship suddenly displayed human content. Cooking shows, cat videos, advertisement jingles, reality TV shows. The psychological warfare was devastating to a species that had never encountered such chaotic information. Warfare. But the true masterstroke was yet to come. Earth's actual warships had been slowly moving into position while the Vorthak were distracted. They formed a loose net around the alien fleet, not to attack but to herd them. Slowly, carefully, they were pushing the Vorthak toward Jupiter. Admiral Thexar noticed too late. "All ships, break formation. Do not approach the gas giant." But the combination of electromagnetic interference, civilian vessel harassment, and sensory overload had destroyed their coordination. The proud Vorthak fleet found itself being pushed like cattle toward Jupiter's massive radiation field. Breaking every rule. The realization hit Admiral Thexar like a physical blow. Jupiter's magnetosphere, one of the most powerful natural phenomena in the Sol system, loomed before his fleet. The humans weren't trying to destroy them with weapons. They were using the universe itself as their ally. "Full reverse," Thexar commanded, but the mining ships had created a web of magnetic fields that interfered with their navigation systems. The civilian vessels that had seemed so chaotic were, actually, in perfect position to box them in. Every move the Vorthak made to escape only pushed them closer to Jupiter's deadly embrace. Commander Chen opened a channel to the Vorthak flagship. "Admiral Thexar, I believe you're beginning to understand. We're not violating a single protocol. We haven't fired a weapon of mass destruction. Our military ships haven't even engaged. Yours directly. These are all civilian vessels engaged in perfectly legal mining operations that happen to be occurring in the combat zone." The Vorthak Admiral's 4 eyes blazed with indignation. "You dare to mock the sacred rules of engagement?" "Not mocking," Chen replied calmly. "Simply interpreting them through human eyes. You see, Admiral, your protocols assume everyone thinks like you do. That warfare is a formal dance with established steps. But humans? We learned to fight when we were still hiding in caves from predators. We've never had the luxury of fighting fair." As if to emphasize her point, a new wave of chaos erupted. Human news drones, technically civilian observers allowed under the protocols, swarmed the Vorthak fleet. They broadcast everything live to the galaxy, showing the mighty empire being herded by mining ships and cargo haulers. The humiliation was being witnessed by billions across known space. But the humans weren't done. Phase 2 of Operation Wildcard began as Earth's moon suddenly lit up with activity. Massive radio telescopes normally used for deep space research turned toward the battle. They began transmitting something that made the Vorthak's universal translators go haywire. Tommy Morrison had fed them every human language simultaneously, including dead languages, fictional languages from entertainment, and programming code. The mental strain on the Vorthak, who prided themselves on understanding all forms of communication, was overwhelming. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, something strange was happening. The asteroids themselves were moving. Over the past 28 days, human mining companies had attached small thrusters to hundreds of space rocks, officially for mineral extraction purposes. Now those asteroids were slowly drifting into the Vorthak fleet's escape routes. Not fast enough to be weapons, just fast enough to be obstacles. Admiral Thexar watched his tactical display with growing despair. Every move his fleet made was countered not by military force but by creative interpretation of what constituted civilian activity. When his ships tried to form up, construction vessels would arrive to build navigation beacons right in their path. When they attempted to communicate, educational broadcasts about human anatomy would override their channels. The psychological warfare intensified. Dr. Santos had studied Vorthak psychology and identified their deepest cultural fear: disorder. Their entire civilization was built on predictability and structure, so the humans gave them the opposite. Ships would appear, to surrender, then claim it was a miscommunication. Civilian vessels would broadcast distress signals, then thank the Vorthak for responding to their drill. The randomness was driving the orderly alien minds to the breaking point. "Supreme Admiral," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "The humans they're having a party." Indeed, several human vessels had linked up and were hosting what appeared to be a celebration. Music blasted across all frequencies. Lights flashed in patterns that hurt Vorthak eyes. Someone had even managed to create fireworks in space using mining explosives, technically not weapons since they weren't aimed at anything. But while the Vorthak were distracted by the chaos, the real trap was closing. Jupiter's radiation field was beginning to affect their ship's systems, not enough to cause permanent damage yet, but enough to make their shields flicker and their sensors unreliable. The human ships, with their primitive technology, were actually better suited for this environment. They had been hardened against radiation out of necessity, while the Vorthak had relied on their advanced shields. Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Admiral Thexar, you have 2 choices. You can continue pushing forward and watch Jupiter's magnetosphere slowly degrade your systems, or you can surrender. And before you choose, consider this. Everything we've done has been broadcast to the entire galaxy. Win or lose, everyone now knows that humans don't fight by the rules." The implications were staggering. Other species under Vorthak rule were watching. seeing the mighty empire confused and outmaneuvered by a species that had barely achieved faster than light travel. The political damage was potentially worse than any military defeat. Admiral Thexar's pride warred with his pragmatism. His fleet could probably still win through sheer firepower, but at what cost? And what would victory even mean when the entire galaxy had seen them humiliated by mining ships and cat videos? "You have not won," Thexar transmitted. "You have merely complicated matters." "Haven't we, though?" Chen asked. "Your fleet is trapped between Jupiter and a bunch of civilians you can't legally fire upon without violating your own protocols. Your communications are jammed by music and memes. Your crews are probably questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare, and the entire galaxy is watching. So I ask you, Admiral, what does victory look like from where you're standing?" The silence stretched for long minutes. Around them the chaos continued. A human teenager on a modified racing pod was doing loops around a Vorthak destroyer while broadcasting something called yakety sax. A team of scientists was using their research vessel's sensors to project holograms of human facial expressions onto Vorthak hulls. Someone had taught the mining drones to form up in a pattern that spelled out "Welcome to Earth" in Vorthak script. Finally, Admiral Thexar spoke. "What are your terms?" Chen had been prepared for this. "Simple. The Vorthak Empire withdraws all claims to the Sol system. In exchange, we don't publish the technical specifications of how we did this to every oppressed species in your empire. That's blackmail." "No," Chen corrected. "That's negotiation. Another human specialty." The Admiral's 4 eyes closed in defeat. He could see the future unfolding. If word got out about how the humans had fought, every small species, every conquered world would start thinking creatively. The Empire's entire power structure, built on predictable, honorable warfare, would crumble. "I need to consult with the Empire," Thexar said finally. "Of course," Chen agreed pleasantly. "Take your time, though you might want to hurry. Jupiter's radiation gets stronger the longer you stay, and our miners are running out of asteroids to accidentally nudge in your direction." 3 hours later, the Vorthak Empire officially withdrew all claims to the Sol system. The surrender ceremony, mandated by protocol, was unlike any in Galactic Council history. General Kumar accepted the surrender while a mariachi band played, in the background, cultural exchange perfectly legal. The formal documents were signed on a table made from a repurposed asteroid, mineral rights demonstration. And the entire ceremony was photobombed by a civilian in an inflatable dinosaur costume, freedom of expression. As the Vorthak fleet limped away, Admiral Thexar sent one final message to Commander Chen. "You have won this day, human, but the galaxy will not forget what you've done." "That's the point," Chen replied. "We want them to remember. We want every aggressive empire out there to know that humans don't just break the rules. We make our own." The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. Within days, 3 other empires quietly withdrew their expansion plans near human space. Chitti. Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss updating the combat protocols, then gave up when they realized humans would just find new loopholes. Several smaller species requested military advisors from Earth, wanting to learn the art of creative compliance. But perhaps the most surprising outcome came from the Vorthak themselves. 6 months later, Admiral Thexar returned to Earth, not with a fleet but with a diplomatic envoy. He found Commander Chen in her new office at the Human Strategic Innovation Department. "I have spent months studying your history," Thexar said, his 4 eyes showing what might have been respect. "Your species has survived not despite your chaos but because of it. You adapt, you improvise, you overcome. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths we never recognized." Chen poured him a cup of coffee, another human tradition that baffled aliens. "So, what brings you here, Admiral?" "The Empire faces threats, traditional threats that follow traditional rules. We win those battles, but there are others. Pirates who don't follow protocols, insurgents who use unconventional tactics. We need consultation." Chen smiled. "You want to hire humans to teach. You how to fight dirty. We prefer the term strategic innovation, Thexar said with what might have been humor. No, Chen corrected. That's negotiation. Another human specialty. The Admiral's 4 eyes closed in defeat. He could see the future unfolding. If word got out about how the humans had fought, every small species, every conquered world would start thinking creatively. The Empire's entire power structure, built on predictable, honorable warfare, would crumble. I need to consult with the Empire, Thexar said finally. Of course, Chen agreed pleasantly. Take your time, though you might want to hurry. Jupiter's radiation gets stronger the longer you stay, and our miners are running out of asteroids to accidentally nudge in your direction. 3 hours later, the Vorthak Empire officially withdrew all claims to the Sol system. The surrender ceremony, mandated by protocol, was unlike any in Galactic Council history. General Kumar accepted the surrender while a mariachi band played. In the background, cultural exchange perfectly legal. The formal documents were signed on a table made from a repurposed asteroid, mineral rights demonstration. And the entire ceremony was photobombed by a civilian in an inflatable dinosaur costume, freedom of expression. As the Vorthak fleet limped away, Admiral Thexar sent one final message to Commander Chen. You have won this day, human, but the galaxy will not forget what you've done. That's the point, Chen replied. We want them to remember. We want every aggressive empire out there to know that humans don't just break the rules, we make our own. The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. Within days, 3 other empires quietly withdrew their expansion plans near human space. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss updating the combat protocols, then gave up when they realized humans would just find new loopholes. Several smaller species requested military advisors from Earth, wanting to learn the art of creative compliance. But perhaps the most surprising outcome came from the Vorthak themselves. 6 months later, Admiral Thexar returned to Earth, not with a fleet, but with a diplomatic envoy. He found Commander Chen in her new office at the Human Strategic Innovation Department. I have spent months studying your history, Thexar said, his 4 eyes showing what might have been respect. Your species has survived not despite your chaos, but because of it. You adapt, you improvise, you overcome. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths we never recognized. Chen poured him a cup of coffee, another human tradition that baffled aliens. So what brings you here, Admiral? The Empire faces threats, traditional threats that follow traditional rules. We win those battles. But there are others. Pirates who don't follow protocols, insurgents who use unconventional tactics. We need consultation. Chen smiled. You want to hire humans to teach you how to fight dirty. We prefer the term strategic innovation, Thexar said with what might have been humor. And so Earth found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or conquered, but as something far more valuable. The species you called when the rules weren't working. The ones who looked at impossible situations and asked, but what if we tried it backwards? The cosmic wildcards who reminded everyone that sometimes the best way to win a game was to play a different one entirely. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never tell humans something is impossible. They'll take it as a challenge. And they'll probably win by doing something so unexpected that you'll spend years trying to figure out if it was genius or insanity. The answer, of course, was both. That was what made them human.